Hi, my name is Walter Kim. I worked on Late Night and Late Show from 1993 to 2015. I started off in production and I ended up in the digital department with my friend Jay Johnson. I was a huge fan of Late Night growing up. There was one joke that I remember specifically. It had to do with the actress and model Grace Jones. And it was just so random and so specific, and I just remember laughing and thinking, I need to keep watching this show.
Here is the search and see puzzle. Yes, Paul, you'll know it. Can you find Grace Jones hidden among all these anvils, irons, and aircraft carriers?
As an Asian person, I remember always loving whenever Connie Chung was on the show. You just didn't see a lot of Asian people on TV, let alone my favorite late night television show. Dave and her just had such great chemistry together.
Special order shoe trees for Connie's husband, Murray.
Maury.
He has problem feet.
He doesn't have problem feet. David, I can't have you pay for them.
Stop
really.
the whining. Just don't whine, please.
Maury's going to be very upset.
He won't know. How will he know? Oh, he's never, yeah, like he stays up to see this.
He does.
Pretty much dozes off in his food, doesn't he?
Get a hot dog.
All right, gonna get a hot dog with Connie. 3 of them with kraut and mustard, 3 with kraut, mustard, and relish. And don't touch them. Don't touch them. Don't touch them. If I see you touching them, the deal's off. Oh, you touched it. That one's no good. I saw you touch that one. He touched that one. Construction workers drinking beer, Connie. Construction workers drinking beer. They're drunk. Then they're gonna go build buildings. Hey, it's Connie Chung. Hey! Oh my God! Oh my God! He did that to Connie Chung.
I always loved it whenever Dave would call somebody during the show, whether it was How's the Weather with Barbara Gaines or calling Meg Parson across the street. But one of my favorite bits that doesn't get a lot of attention is something called How Much Gas is in Joe Frazier's Car?
How you been?
Good. Is this Smoking Joe Frazier?
Yeah, you got me. Who's there?
This is Dave Letterman, Joe.
David, how you been, man?
Good. How are you doing? When was the last time you got gas in the Cadillac?
I filled up in New York this morning.
This morning. Did you fill it up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And have you driven it since you filled it up?
All the way from New York.
Okay. Here we go, Joe. Tell us now. How much gas do you have in the tank of the caddy?
Okay, it should be full by now.
This is how much gas Joe has in his tank.
Was he?
It's full.
Was he filling it as he was speaking to you?
I don't know. But see, do you see how much fun that's going to be after 9 or 10 months?
One of my all-time favorite guests was Charles Grodin. I loved it every time he came on. He had this big attitude like he was a movie star and Dave was just this little TV star.
I was making a movie with Candy Bergen. Candy Bergen.
Candace.
Well, I work with her. I can say that. Do you know her?
Well, I know she doesn't like being called Candy.
Well, if you... Do you know her?
I've met her, yes.
But you haven't worked with her?
Well, in the sense of her being on the show, yes, we've worked
No, but
together.
I mean work with her.
No, we didn't put in a patio or anything.
I love the anniversary shows. They did one from an airplane, they did it from Radio City Music Hall, but to me, the best one was the Late Night Baby anniversary show. This was when they had Bob Costas and Vince McMahon at 2 different Manhattan hospitals, waiting for the first baby to be born during the taping of the anniversary show. I just remember Dave poking fun at Vince McMahon and making fun of his tuxedo.
But right through this office, the former head of pediatrics has decorated this office unbelievably in hopes that we will have a very, very big birthday party here. So we're very much looking forward to this hospital, New York hospital, being the one deemed having, of course, the late night baby.
All right. Probably not a bad idea to have some oxygen standing by for Vince. Vince, I have a question for you also.
Yes, David.
Is that your tuxedo?
No, actually, it's not.
Okay. Okay, well, things are going better than ever.
So a little known fact, I used to appear in the show Open every night. I was riding on the back of a fire truck and I was the guy that ran under the marquee at the end. There's no real story here except for the fact that these appearances helped pay my rent for a few years.
And now, the man they call Pocket Hercules, David Letterman!
I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area and there was no bigger star than San Francisco 49ers quarterback Joe Montana. We were going to do a week of shows in San Francisco and Joe agreed to tape a remote with Dave where they spend the day together. At one point, we're on the marina and Joe needs to throw a pass to Dave, but they needed him to warm up. Our director, Jerry Foley, who knew I was a big 49ers fan, said, "Hey, Walter, why don't you go out and catch some passes?" I ran out there and I got to catch passes from the great Joe Montana. In high school, like a lot of people, I had a fake ID, and the name I came up with was Eddie Lee Quan. And I'm not exactly sure where that came from. I think it might have been an oblique reference to Eddie Van Halen, but anyway, all my friends mocked me for coming up with that name. Flash forward to when I'm working on the show, and I tell my friend Tom, who's a writer on the show, that I had a fake ID and my name was Eddie Lee Quan, and he just thought that was ridiculous. But one day he wrote a skit for me, and he needed a name for the character, so he used my fake ID name.
But we do have enough money to give a car away to one lucky audience member here tonight. Okay, this is going to be good. All right. Okay, is there in the audience tonight a gentleman by the name of Eddie Lee Quan?
Oh my God!
Eddie Lee.
I don't believe it.
There he is right there. Congratulations. Go on outside. There's a Pontiac waiting for you. What a brand new Pontiac. That's just great. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Look at, oh, man. That's awful. Is that ugly?
Every once in a while, something that we created for digital would make it onto the show. One of these was an idea I had where celebrities would read Dave's squirrel jokes.
It is so hot, I see a squirrel in Central Park icing his nuts.
We got a bunch of celebrities to appear in this, including Ray Romano and Sting and Tom Hanks. And I remember when I was shooting Tom Hanks, I was holding the camera right about here, and I saw Tom, and he kind of looked at me and he went like this, and he kept motioning up. And I said, what? He's like, just bring up the camera a little bit. So I brought it up a little higher, and I just remember he said to me, above the ears, 10 pounds, 10 years. And I still think about that every time I'm shooting somebody.
Today in New York,
it was so hot.
So hot. So hot. I saw a squirrel rubbing sunblock using barbecue tongs.
Rubbing guacamole on his nuts.
Twice. It was so hot in Central Park today.
I saw a squirrel rubbing sunblock on his nuts. Now I know what Letterman feels like.
The show used a lot of staffers as extras, but I'm a terrible actor. The one thing I did enjoy doing was this thing called Who Asked For It? This is where staffers would be in the audience and they'd ask Dave a question. But you also had to come up with a backstory, you know, where you lived, what your job was, because Dave would have fun trying to poke holes in your story. I'm a huge Oakland A's fan, and I knew that they were in town to play the Yankees, but that they had an off day. So I came up with this background that I was the assistant to the equipment manager for the Oakland A's. Immediately after I said that, you could tell that Dave just rolled his eyes and he wasn't buying any of it. But in my defense, the next day I read in the paper that the Oakland A's manager and one of their coaches were in the audience that night, and they were laughing about how a staffer was pretending to be the A's equipment manager.
Yes, sir. What is your name, please?
Peter Yoon.
Hi, Peter. Nice to see you. Where are you from, Pete?
Sunnyvale, California.
What do you do?
I'm actually an assistant to the equipment manager for the Oakland A's.
No, you're not. How are the A's doing this year?
We're in first place.
Let me ask you a question. Does Charlie Finley still own the A's?
No, he's been gone for a while.
Yeah. Okay, what can I do for you, Pete?
I was wondering if
Wait a minute, shouldn't you be with the team?
Well, we're here in New York.
Oh, you're here in New York?
We have an off day.
You All right, and your question, what can I do for you?
I was wondering if I could push one of the buttons in your control room.
Jerry, our friend, is it Pete?
Yeah.
Pete Yoon, who works with the Oakland Athletics, is coming into the control room to press a button. Go ahead, Pete, take off. It's right, it's right this way. There he is, right over there. Yeah, there's Tim Kennedy.
Go ahead, give it a try.
Yeah, give it a try. Oh, look at that. Wow.
I'm going to tell you a story that Dave told me never to tell anybody. We were shooting a piece where Dave goes over to the Broadway show Cats and interrupts them. My job was to cue Dave, so we went up onto the catwalk and waited for the music to begin. I don't know if you remember, but Dave used to sing the theme from Cats.
Yeah.
Midnight and the kitties are sleeping.
So when we were there waiting for our cue and we hear the music begin, they start singing the theme from Cats. but this is the actual theme from Cats with the real lyrics. And I'm not exactly Mr. Broadway, so I just remember turning to Dave and going, I always thought it was midnight and the kiddies are sleeping. And he just paused and he said, never tell anyone what you just told me. When we were going to do a week of shows in Los Angeles, we would go out a few weeks earlier and tape some remotes with Dave and Paul. So one of these pieces was Dave and Paul spend the day in Los Angeles. So there are two things I remember about that. One, I got to operate the angry badger that attacks Dave, and the other one featured a cameo by Johnny Carson. And when we were shooting this, they needed somebody to cue Johnny in his car. So Hal Gurney, the director, said, hey Walter, why don't you go down with Mr. Carson and cue him? I introduced myself to Johnny, I shook his hand, and then I got to cue Johnny Carson.
They twist and I'll twist. They shimmy and I'll shimmy. They fly and I'll fly. Well, they're out there having fun in that one California. They're out there having fun in that one California sun. Well, they're out there having fun in that one California.
So one of the coolest things that we got to work on in the digital department was A Day in the Life of Dave, which aired on the very last Late Show. This was where Jay Johnson and I followed Dave around backstage, in his dressing room, in his office. I remember we wanted to capture him coming into work, but he used to show up at like 6 a.m., so we had to get up at 4 a.m. to make sure we were ready for him. So we shot it and we edited it together, and then a few days later he decided that he wanted to reshoot it because he didn't like the hat he was wearing. So again, we had to get up at 4 a.m. and meet him and shoot him again, and that's what made it into the final piece.
Whoa! Yeah! Yeah! You know what I'm going to devote the rest of my life to? Social media. Oh, you moved the damn glass!
I'm a huge U2 fan, so I was really excited when they were going to do a week of our show. On top of that, my writer friend Tom wrote a skit for Jay Johnson and myself. I just remember being super excited that I was going to be able to meet Bono and The Edge. Jay and I are waiting in the elevator, and then Bono and The Edge come in, and they don't even look at us. They do their take, and then they were gone. The next day, the only comment I remember getting was, I guess it was ugly plaid shirt day.
Where the streets have no name, still building and burning down love.
God, I hate elevator music. No offense, guys.
None taken. It's fine. It's a beautiful day.
This next clip didn't air on the show, but it's something that I really like. This took place actually on the last day of the show when we had the Celebrity Top 10 with Jerry Seinfeld and Chris Rock and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I remember during rehearsal that Julia didn't like her joke and requested a new one. And at the time, we were shooting some backstage footage, and I just happened to capture the moment where Julia and the writers came up with the perfect joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
That's funny.
That's funny.
Number 4, Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Thanks for letting me take part in another hugely disappointing series finale.
The thing that I'm most proud of was something that I had originally created for digital, but when the producers saw it, they thought it was good enough to air during the last couple weeks of the show. This was a montage of all the outdoor stuff that Dave had done on Broadway and 53rd Street. I just thought it was so cool that I was able to contribute something to this show that I'd watched my entire life and worked on for many years. It was just an incredible way to end my run there.
You had to start sometime. What better place than here? What better time than now? Can't stop us now. Can't stop us now. Can't stop us now. Can't stop us now. Can't stop us now.
I have a question for you, Larry. Is that your tux?
No, it's not.
All right. Fuck you. Anything else, Kate?